Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are starting our first panel. It's the topic Upskilling and Reskilling. We have Daniel, Adam, Mary, and Sharon D. And now I will hand over to Daniel to start the session. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jan. Thanks for the quick intro here, and welcome everybody to this first panel discussion on what I think is a very urgent and current topic: upskilling and reskilling for staffing companies. Just a fad or just essential? We'll try to make this a fun session to all of you. We'll start off with a few introductions, of course. My name is Daniel Masada. I'm the founder of Volante, where we built a digital workforce agility platform. And really our mission is to turn workplace and career change into more positive and proactive and empowering experiences. And in a previous life, I spent 15 years with Adecco Group, which probably many of you know, most recently as head of global strategy and digital transformation. Well, clearly, the pressure is on here for this group here, because this is the first panel discussion. We'll see if technology cooperates with all of us and collaborates here. I take my hat off to the Gustav team and Jan for them working in this online format. I think all of us know that it's not always easy to, again, make technology collaborate, but I think they have done a tremendous job just leading up to this event, and I'm sure this will be a great session overall. I can see that we have 1,257 participants on this online panel, which of course is great turnout. But I'm not surprised because I have the privilege of being joined by three outstanding professionals, executives, and subject matter experts and friends on this panel here. In just a second, I will ask them to give their 15-second introductions, each one of them, and then I'll start it off with one little icebreaker question to get everybody going, and then we'll really dive into this session here for today. Again, upskilling and reskilling for staffing companies, just a fad or just essential. So I'm sure this will be a great conversation. Little short round of introductions here with everybody. Mary, do you want to kick it off?
Sure, happy to. I'm Mary Finley, Executive Vice President of Human Resources at a staffing consulting firm called Advanced Group, headquartered out of Chicago. I lead human resources across our internal employee base, as well as all of the consultants that we have out with our clients. And prior to the 3.5 years I've spent with Advanced, I spent about 12 years in the training space, training and consulting on the training vendor side, where we were providing corporate education into clientele across the globe. So really excited to speak about this topic with you all.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Sharon, next.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daniel, and welcome everybody. I'm really delighted to be here. I work as a president for global enterprise business for General Assembly, focusing on digital skills development, mostly in reskilling, upskilling. It's a very relevant topic from my side. I've spent over 12 years with the Adecco Group, like Daniel as well, in various different roles, last one being global industry lead for engineering and technology. Delighted to be here and look forward to speaking to you all.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. Adam, dialing in from London.
Yeah, hence the gloomy skies. But yeah, thank you, Daniel, and good afternoon or good morning to everyone. My name is Adam Hawkins. I work for LinkedIn and run our EMEA and LATAM staffing business, where we serve and support customers across the staffing sector.
Great. Thanks, Adam, for being part of this as well. I promised a short round of icebreakers, so here we go. Adam, you will have to respond first. The first question is a would you rather question, okay? So here it is. Would you rather never have another Zoom call or never have another phone call? You may answer now, Adam.
I'd rather never have a phone call. I do enjoy the human interaction, so happy to see people more than speak.
Nice. Okay. Sharon, how about you?
Likewise, Adam, rather see people in the absence of not being able to meet everyone. So this is the closest fit.
Great. And Mary?
I have to agree. I'll round it out. Would much prefer never to take a phone call again. I love seeing everybody on Zoom and being able to connect on video.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, unanimous vote. So no opportunity here to short the Zoom stock, I guess. We'll have to figure something else out. I have one additional quick question. Obviously 2020 was a crazy year in many ways, a year that drove a lot of change. And obviously this is partly what we're talking about here. So let's ask a short hypothetical question. So this one is a what if question, right? And the question is, what if you had not ended up in this line of work that you're all in now? What would you be doing now? What would you be doing now if you had not ended up in this line of work? Like, where would you see you? Where would we see you? And this time I think we'll start with Sharondeep. I think he has the easiest answer there. I might actually even know what it is. So Sharondeep, how about you? Where would we be seeing you now if you had not ended up in professional services and technology and now with General Assembly?
I'll be probably running and operating a hotel or a restaurant. That's where I would be.
Nice. Good. That's great. I can totally see that. So let me know once that happens. Mary, how about you?
I have a great passion for public health and considered at one point pivoting into the public health arena and going back for a master's degree. And I think this last year has been so challenging, but so interesting from a public health perspective. And it definitely piqued that interest for me once again. So I think I would have pursued that.
Got it. That's interesting. Nice. Very good. Adam, how about you?
Well, you know me quite well. Probably two routes. One, either continuing a DJing career, which I used to fund my university. That could be one area, but I think the other area was I was very, very close before going to university, aside from studying business management, to go into criminology. I think I have a deep curiosity for people, so maybe I would have been a criminologist. I don't know, maybe.
Well, you got the James Bond accent going, so if I was you, I would pick that over DJ Hawkins. All right, very good. Thank you all. Appreciate the responses here. Now let's really dive into our topic here for today. One more time: upskilling and reskilling for staffing companies. Is it just a fad, or is it just essential? And obviously, we want to make this a very interactive session. Between all of us here, right, on the panel, but then hopefully also be getting some good questions here from the audience. I'll just kick it off with a few questions, and in fact, my first one is for you, Mary. You mentioned it earlier. You have over a decade of experience in the learning and development and training space. You work for an organization that I know wants to be a great place to work when it comes to helping their employees develop. You are all over this topic. But with you having this deep experience and all this history in the space, what is really different about upskilling and reskilling this time? Or is it just another form of learning and development and training, and there's not really anything new behind it? So I guess it's almost like the core question, right? Is it just a fad, or is it something new that everybody should be really focused on and understand how they can use it for their companies, for their individual careers and their organizations?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. And I do think it's an evolution. I think it still has its roots in traditional learning and development and training, but it has certainly evolved. And I think upskilling and reskilling really are a response to the workplace change and how rapid change is in our environment right now. Really aimed at developing skills in a more agile and immediately relevant way. So whether you're preparing to take on a completely new job or learning skills for your current position, over the last couple of decades, the idea that a person will hold between 12 and 15 jobs in their lifetime is just really telling, and how many times a person is going to have to pivot and evolve their skill set. We know that careers are no longer linear. We don't build career paths with 15 rungs on a ladder anymore. We build career paths that have zigzags where you're going up, down, sideways, sometimes backwards, even to learn and take on new initiatives. So when I think about the traditional learning tracks, corporate universities, certification programs, kind of where I started in the early 2000s, those tended to align to a very defined career trajectory, whether it was building in seniority or moving into management. They also tended to be pretty broad in scope, tackle larger competencies that take time to develop, and they might not have been immediately relevant to the person's job. It was perhaps, something that was going to build with them over the course of a linear career. So one, I don't think that always translates into the staffing environment where our consultants might be focused on project-based work that's ever changing. And when I think about upskilling and reskilling and what's different about this versus traditional is it really is that in the moment need. How do I think differently? What do I do differently? How can I be better in this activity right now? Whether it's technical, leadership, interpersonal, social, whatever it is, it's topical and it matters to that person right then in their career and their current job. So this underlying element that I think has been pervasive over the last decade of just continuous improvement, agile thinking, the concept of growth mindset has really taken root, I think, across corporate America, and really seeing the the positive nature of change. And specifically for our employees and our consultants, when I think about upskilling and reskilling, it's about them being able to proactively take control in an ever-changing environment and helping them guide a next step, whatever that next step might be.
Yeah. So it's more right here, right now, more linked to what's happening in their respective organizations or roles in this moment, right? So there's a more direct link basically between their current situation and really the upskilling and reskilling content, right? Yeah.
Right.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Speaking of trying to find the topics and the upskilling and reskilling programs that are the most relevant for talent out there currently, right? Maybe that's a good segue over to you, Sharondeep. You work for General Assembly, one of the hottest and biggest brands in the upskilling and reskilling space, based out of New York here as well, right?
Yeah.
What is, there's a lot of buzz, not just about upskilling and reskilling in general, but about General Assembly as well. What is the magic recipe really for upskilling and reskilling? How do you make it engaging and relevant, to Mary's point, right? How do you create upskilling and reskilling that's really relevant for the individual? But then I guess a second part of my question, especially for you, Sharon, given your role, on the other hand, right, what is it that your enterprise customers are looking for as well, right? How does upskilling and reskilling work for them?
Yeah, sure. A great question. So let me address your latter part of the question first. So from an enterprise perspective, reskilling existing employees is a more cost-effective strategy for filling roles than hiring external candidates. And it also helps make your organization more competitive in the long haul. The millennial workforce is known for its job hopping, but studies show that the vast majority of them also value professional development and career growth opportunities. So by investing in your talent's growth and equipping them with the right skills, companies will be in better position to attract and retain top talent instead of having to seek it out each time they need a position to be filled. And Daniel, if you look at from a consumer side, it is no secret that certain skill sets are losing their value. Instead of waiting for your area of expertise to become obsolete or replaced by automation, reskilling presents the opportunity for workers to learn new skills and put their talents to use in new ways with long-term job potential. So by being transparent and employees about what skills are most needed within your organization, and highlighting the ways these skills will be used going forward, employers can create excitement about the future and empower their staff to participate in open dialogue, contribute to the training development process, and ultimately transition into new roles. So keeping that in mind, so if you look at what good, to your question, what good upskilling and reskilling ultimately comes down to is having clear goals and a pathway for achieving them. And in order for them to work, the companies, the staffing companies or just traditional enterprises, you need to have a buy-in from all parties involved, especially including the person who's being upskilled or reskilled. And of course, your organization's top executives who will be doing the investments. The content that is intentional and is learned in a service of a clear outcome. And the outcome here is usually around a new position or a set of responsibilities. And then finally, a concrete rollout plan for getting started, because a lot of us know we need to do X, but we don't know where to start and how to actually go about completing it successfully. So at the end of the day, I would say the companies are looking for flexibility in their L&D initiatives and a clear ROI when it comes to upskilling and reskilling costs in terms of flexibility. You can approach upskilling and reskilling through courses and certificates, or hybrid learning, or blended education as the buzzword these days, where companies might combine coaching with online learning to achieve the optimum results. And lastly, I would say that when it comes to making the financial investment, General Assembly recently commissioned research by Josh Bersin, who a lot of you would know as a leading expert in the HR field, that found it can cost as much as 6 times more to hire from the outside than to build from within. Now, from a staffing company perspective, you would say, well, that kind of diminishes my value proposition, which is all about, finding people, getting them to work. I would really point to some of the statistical standpoint of World Economic Forum that recently put out that predicting the technological changes could displace as many as 85 million jobs in the next 5 years. But at the same time, an estimated 97 million new jobs stand to be created due to the rapid acceleration of automation. So you can see that what the importance of reskilling, upskilling within the company, but it's almost a necessity now to find those net new roles that are more relevant for future in-demand roles that will come to the market very soon.
Really interesting, Sharon, even. And, I think one topic that we also want to get to still on this panel here, maybe in a few minutes, is, how can staffing companies actually include this idea of upskilling and reskilling into their own service offerings, right? Because to your point, like an initial reaction could be that you think, well, if companies do more upskilling and reskilling, then they will hire less from the outside, right? Because it's 6 times cheaper or more cost effective to upskill and reskill apparently than to hire from the outside. So, if that's a winning proposition for client companies, then I guess you could say you better find a way as a staffing company to somehow be part of that development in a proactive way, right? So let's earmark that topic, that thought for a moment. This is really interesting, Sharon. Thanks for sharing. I want to pull Adam in here as well, of course. Adam, you work for the 400-pound gorilla in the professional networking space out there for LinkedIn, a company that I would just assume, every single user maybe on this call here not only obviously is present on with their own profile, but also leverages the platform as a key tool for their work, right? I mean, who would we all be in the recruiting space without LinkedIn licenses? But one of the aspects that I find fascinating about LinkedIn is also the fact that you guys go deep when it comes to research and understanding the trends and developments in the world of work and the future of work, So I'd like to double click on this with you, Adam, for a moment, especially because of your role within LinkedIn and your background, which really combines the view both on the users and how LinkedIn can power businesses in the staffing and recruiting space, but at the same time you also see the client perspective and just the general trends overall. So can we zoom into this a little more? What are some of the trends and developments that LinkedIn sees in the space, maybe particularly linked to this upskilling and reskilling topic here?
Yeah, so thanks for the intro, Daniel. And I think you're right. It's great to see the real-time interaction and data points on LinkedIn, and that goes way beyond now connections. We're talking about job activity. We're talking about company activity, but I think areas such as content engagement and also our learning business is a very interesting one. I think we could talk all day long around the data points, which doesn't bode well for panel discussion, but I just want to pull out maybe 4 key themes that I've been looking at and seeing across the industry. So I think on the topic of upskilling and reskilling a fad, absolutely not. I think it's an absolute business imperative as we see today, and we've conducted a number of reports through our learning business of late, and one of the studies we did, we saw that 70% of a learning and development community say that their CEOs are now championing actively workforce professional development, which is a marked uptick and very interesting. And within that, this is all about developing skills for the future. So we did another study of 700 CEOs that are managing businesses of 250,000 plus, so a million turnover and 1,000 staff, and all of that activity is around prioritization of skill gaps. It's all to do with future skills. So that's really interesting. I think the second area, which is really interesting to me, is around learning is key for employee engagement. So we all work in a very challenging world, and some people are coping reasonably well, but we have to look at our businesses, and we look at, I would say, early in career and the younger generations, and there's been a very disorientating and challenging experience through that. And if we look at learning and development, a lot of the early in career progression happens through osmosis. And I think what we're seeing on the platform, and when I say platform, I'm talking all the different elements, we're seeing that leaders are having to really think about the types of experiences that they're offering to employees around learning and development. So that goes beyond content. This is all to do with rigor around best practice sharing, peer-to-peer learning. People are less interested in top-down content. They want to learn from each other. And I think that the companies that get this right around a continuous learning culture through the business and generating digital osmosis experiences, I think will prosper, because that's being actively sought in addition to career progression and remuneration.
Yeah.
The third area, and none of these should surprise any of us, but our data sort of really doubles down on this, is that the whole war for digital talent will intensify, and that's not going to be a surprise to any of us. What we've seen, and this has been particularly relevant to the staffing industry, Daniel, as well, which is many businesses have been procrastinating for years around digital transformation, but the pandemic and all of the affiliated factors around the pandemic has catapulted us. We've seen 2 years worth of transformation in 2 months. We've seen the future in 5 years, and we haven't been able to procrastinate. What's been interesting is that we've accelerated digital transformation, and actually I'm seeing across the staffing industry the appetite to not just get us working from home, managing performance and productivity, but also now an accelerated interest around that topic. So that's increasing demand for digital talent. The other thing is that catapulting the world 5 years has meant that some sectors and industries it's just really accelerated the inevitable. So I think about sort of retail, the writing was already on the wall around, high streets and offline retail. We've seen a marked increase in obviously e-commerce now and things like hyper-local businesses. The digital talent will now compete with other sectors that were always at play. And I think it's really interesting of how employees now reskill that talent. And we've been partnering with Microsoft to help individuals reskill. So you can go on opportunity at linkedin.com and there's around 1,000 hours in those digital skill areas. And we've also been working with Sharon Deep and that business on how do we support the reskilling area. The last area, and I'll try and keep it short, is which I think is really interesting, which is around internal mobility is on the rise. And I think the recruitment industry or the staffing sector have a huge role to play in this. What that means, Daniel, is that it's never been more so that people are moving their talent within the business, and that's being stemmed from fundamentally what I term career confidence. There are many people in jobs that feel scared to move, even if they're not satisfied or engaged or empowered. It's just not the right time to move. What that's meaning is that firms cannot hire people from external so easily. That will unlock. So people are looking to mobilize inward talent. I think also the hyper focus on diversity and inclusion is an important one. And actually that's making businesses have a strong focus on promotion of potential from diversity as well. Yeah. Some of our stats are really interesting is that what we call the internal hiring of people in moving into dissimilar roles. So that is marked different roles. Because from April to August has gone up. So I'll give you some market stats. It's gone up 20% in the UK. It's gone up 25% in Germany, 21% in Singapore. That is a marked uptick of people that are moving internally. And I think that's what that's going to mean from a recruiter point of view. We will be assessing talent as recruitment businesses a lot more on potential, ambition, experiences, ability to work in a change environment, and less so about functional roles and accreditations and skills. And I think that will see an evolution. And I think that will be, and we see this finally on the amount of learning content that is being sought on management. How do you manage potential motivation performance remotely? I think the whole theme of dynamic leadership will be one that will be a rich discussion because of all of these things around mobilization inwardly. It's going to put a lot more stresses on upskilling all levels of management across a business. Yeah. There are many more data points, Daniel, but I will stop there because you may want to dig into some of those or challenge some.
Thanks, Adam. Definitely, clearly a lot of data points there that you can share. This is fascinating. Obviously, everyone listening to this here in the audience, feel free to reach out to the speakers here on this professional networking platform called LinkedIn and ask for additional data and elements that you want to follow up on. I have one additional question here, and then I'll ask the WSS team here to surface any questions that might have come in from the audience, of course. But there was one thing in what you just said, Adam, that I think is really a situation that especially Mary, you could speak to. And Adam, you said that 2020 has accelerated digital transformation in a tremendous way, right? And I think we can all feel this. I mean, just us here being on the online panel, because we don't even have any other choice, is one good example. But Mary, your company, Advanced Group, is also very active, very involved in clinical research work, right? And clinical trials have become more and more digital, and virtual clinical trials are obviously the hot topic currently. My question for you there would be, as a change like this happens in the marketplace, for a staffing company, staffing and professional services and outsourcing company like yours, where do you start? Do you start with upskilling and reskilling for your internal talent first, or do you focus on the external market opportunity right away and, somehow create a revenue stream off of this, and at the same time help people upskill and reskill, or upgrade their profiles? Where do you start? You're right at the source, like where it's happening. So where do you start?
Yeah, well, I can tell you where we started was the internal focus, because I think that is kind of the conundrum with staffing businesses, at least from the seat that I have, being HR for staffing, is you have your internal employee base, and then you have those consultants that are out working on your client. And especially in our clinical division, there's a lot of overlap there because we have a variety of outsourcing types of work that we do within the clinical space. So we did really focus first on the internal group who was responding and reacting to the need to run digital trials overnight, and making sure that we were able to very quickly upskill those individuals on whether it was new technology that they needed to use, new processes they needed to follow, new guidelines that were coming out from the federal requirements on how clinical trials needed to be run. So that had to be cascaded and trained very quickly on an internal basis, and then ultimately taking what we could out into the consultant population. I don't think that's like the cracking of the code that I think is, like, for me, the big underlying question of this panel, and especially from a practitioner's view, is when do you take it to your consultants, and how do you make it most relevant to them, and then make it that value add potential revenue stream, but minimally a value add for what you're offering to your customers, because you're providing that upskilling and reskilling opportunity for the consultants that they're going to be bringing into their own environment. And I think that's the other side of this opportunity for staffing firms. Internally at Advanced Group, admittedly, we've been very focused on our internal staff. We're going through internal digital transformation. We're looking to make sure that our teams are ready to support what we do out in the industry. That then translates into how we work with our clients, how we work with our consultants. So it benefits all sides of the ecosystem, but actually providing these upskilling and reskilling opportunities to our consultants so that they can be a part of the digital transformation, or they can be a part of the change at the client environment. That to me is where staffing businesses really need to be thinking.
Great, thanks, Mary. And just one quick follow on there. At a real operational level, right? How do you make upskilling and reskilling happen currently for your external talent? Do you have internal training resources that work with your external talent on upskilling and reskilling programs, or do you buy programs from outside vendors?
It's been a combination. We have invested heavily at Advanced Group in our internal L&D capabilities. We've also partnered and curated content from other providers such as LinkedIn Learning, General Assembly, similar companies such as those. And I think, again, especially with the remote workforce, the distributed workforce, with our consultant base, it has to be a technology-led solution. It has to be short, it has to be concise, it has to be relevant, it has to not take a ton of time for those individuals, because they're working on a critical client initiative. So we need to infuse value without diminishing their ability to perform the critical work for our customer. So I think it technology-led, relevant, short. I think most people, time is the most precious commodity. So it needs to have one or two key takeaways. It has to be about a topic that matters. And so that's been our focus, both internally and as we look out to the consultant base.
Great. Thanks, Mary. I'll ask one more question. This one probably mostly for Sharon Deep, but we have 2 minutes left, so whoever wants to contribute. But Sharon Deep, I saw in the chat here one question from the audience that basically goes into the direction of saying, okay, General Assembly and other boot camp organizations isn't it in the end still, competitive with the staffing and recruiting business? And if not, how can I make sure that it's not competitive, but really complementary or even a new opportunity, right? And I know, Sharon, you obviously represent the big guys out there with General Assembly, but what's your advice to staffing company representatives here in terms of, making it a good situation for them? Can they partner with you? Can they partner with others? Are they white labeling solutions? Like how would you go about it?
Sure. Now, it's such a great question. So for me, as demand for tech and digital talent continues to grow, companies can't always expect to find ready-made talent. I'm talking client companies. So instead, they need to consider what training they can provide new and existing talent to close these widening skill gaps. So when it comes to external talent, staffing companies can play a huge role in identifying individuals who will succeed during the upskilling or reskilling process. By understanding specific job requirements and business needs, you will be in a better position to look for people who have similar or adjacent skills that can be utilized in new capacity. So in General Assembly, for example, we work significantly with the staffing companies, helping them match the client need with the alumni or the consultant, as Mary said, who fits the bill. So having supported over 400 enterprise clients with their skills development sort of initiatives, we can serve, and when I say we, I'm not only specifically calling out General Assembly, but any organization that has a real boots on the ground, in-person learning or online learning that can help you connect the dots between understanding the evolving work landscape and the individual specific needs and a competency gap, so they can be connected to the right role or right task to do the right role and fulfill the gap that a client has. So I think staffing companies play a significant role, and hand in hand working with a reskilling, upskilling company to identify specific competencies gap is the key to really accelerate your business proposition.
And if maybe I could just add one comment to that, Sharondeep, which I think is really critical, is sometimes it feels simple to make a course catalog or a library of courses available to your employees or your consultants, and you think that that's going to be enough. But I think the critical piece is helping people to understand which courses, which training are going to upskill or reskill in a particular competency, and how that ties to what their next project or their next role is going to be within the organization. And so I think that has to be there, and staffing companies don't necessarily have that competency internally to figure that out. And so partnering with the provider would help.
You're spot on, Mary, and that's exactly what this is about. This is not about, hey, I'm moving from a business analyst to a system analyst and it's a role. This is actually about what competency you are missing to be relevant for that title of system analyst, and helping them achieve that plugs the gap, and that's how you sort of start widening your skill sets as well.
Great. Well, I know we could all continue to talk about this for a lot longer. For some reason, we just lost Adam, I think. I don't see him anymore here, but he was a great part of this as well. Thank you so much, Mary, Sharondeep, and Adam, for this conversation. You clearly know what you're talking about, and it was an honor and a privilege to be on this panel together with you. To the audience here, of course, if you have other questions, comments for the participants, and there's Adam again, feel free to share those in the messaging, the chat function here, or of course reach out to the participants individually. I'm looking at the participant count here, the audience count. We picked up another 150 participants during our online panel, so all of you did a great job here, Mary, Adam, and Sharondeep. It has, the fact that there are even more people on here now has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Doug Levy is one of the speakers on the upcoming panel, of course. I think, the credit here goes to the three of you instead. Everybody, of course, stay tuned here for the following panels. Great conversations on there. Again, Doug Levy, Jason Ezrati, Marcus Sawyer, a bunch of others throughout the day here. And hopefully, as insightful and valuable of a conversation as this one. So again, thank you very much to the three of you. And I'll hand it back over to the WSS team to take the audience to the next session.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.